associated with smoking and nicotine addiction. We'll also be delving into whether or not vapes, which are also known as electronic cigarettes, are a safer alternative to traditional smoking. Most importantly, we'll be talking about the steps that a smoker can take to begin the road to kicking the harmful habit of smoking. Our expert speaker today will be Dr. Howard Zahowski, who has been the medical director of Active Doctors Online since 2010. As you can see, Dr. Zahowski has quite a background in the medical field. So welcome, Dr. Zahowski, and thank you for joining us today. So I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you for that nice introduction, Nick. So today we're going to talk about smoking. So here you see an unfortunate person who happens to be a smoker coughing up her lung, as often happens when you are a person who is addicted to cigarettes and nicotine. First, I'm going to start by just giving some statistics about smoking. Currently, or according to 2013 statistics released by the CDC, 18% of Americans are active smokers. Now, the good news is that this is down. In 2009, that figure was 21%, and if you go back to 1974, 51% of all men and 41% of all women were smokers. So we have significantly cut the amount of smokers in the United States, but we can still do better. Smoking is an ugly habit that kills 480,000 people a year, and 20% of all deaths in the United States are felt to have at least smoking as at least a contributing factor. In addition, smoking is really bad for the country as a whole. Because of the money that we spend on health care from smokers and smoking-related illness, as well as the amount of decreased productivity due to time lost from work and productivity lost at work from smoking, it is believed that each pack of cigarettes is costing our society $18.05. Now, even with recent tax increases on cigarettes, each pack is only going for about $5, and only a few dollars of that are actually going to taxes. So every time someone buys a pack of cigarettes, they're costing our country as a whole about $10. Now, let's talk about some of the reasons why cigarettes are so bad for you. And let's go on to the next slide. So, one of the main reasons why cigarettes are so bad is because of all the chemicals that they contain. Each cigarette has over 4,000 chemicals built into it, 69 of which are known carcinogens. That's just actually in the cigarette smoke. These cigarettes themselves can have up to 3,000 more chemicals in their construction. Here you have some of the things that are built into the cigarettes and that can get into your lungs when you smoke. There's butane found in lighter fluid, toluene, which is an industrial solvent, ammonia, which they list as a toilet cleaner, methanol, which can be used as part of rocket fuel. Some of the more dangerous parts include carbon monoxide, which certainly can kill you if you get too much inhaled, methane, sewer gas, and even cadmium, which is used to make batteries. Most of these are things that you really do not want inside of your body. Let's go on to the next slide. So most people, when they start smoking, usually start smoking when they're younger. And although I just gave you a whole lot of chemicals that can get into your body and hurt you, most young people, when they start smoking, think of themselves as indestructible. So this slide is more addressed at the young people. One of the main problems with cigarettes is not just that they can shorten your life and give you health problems, but they can make you ugly. When young people hear that things will make them ugly, that will make them stop and give it a second thought before they start it. Here are some of the problems in terms of just appearance that can happen from smoking. You see smelly hair, you end up with more coughs and colds, you can have blindness, your fingers get stained, your skin can be dry, discolored, and wrinkled. You can become infertile or impotent. That's usually a good one to talk to the young men about. Your breath will be ugly, your teeth will be ugly. So I like to focus on some of these things, particularly when talking to younger people about the harm of smoking. It's not just a health issue, it's also an appearance issue as well. Let's go on to the next slide. So this is something that I hope if you're watching this webinar, you go back, you find this slide and you print it out and you can show it to some teens in your life who may be thinking about smoking or who may even be early smokers. These are facts particularly aimed at teens that are some of the harms of smoking. First one, you can see girls who smoke are more likely to get facial hair. Teens who smoke are more likely to have acne breakouts, and their acne can last longer. And if you look towards the middle, teen smokers are more likely to gain belly fat. So I don't know too many teens who want to be fat, acne-covered woman with facial hair on them. So hopefully if you see this, if you post it where young people can see it, these are some of the good non-medical reasons to avoid smoking. You also can see some additional facts on here. Smokers are 2 times more likely than non-smokers to lose their teeth. And then there's also, of course, the health-related issues. Smokers' bones can take longer to heal, and smoking has been obviously linked to chronic lung disease such as emphysema. Let's go on to the next slide. So here you have my token shock value slide. You can see the healthy lung on the left and the tar-filled lung of a smoker on the right, obviously much different. This is the smoking equivalent of this is your brain on drugs. Well, this is your lung on cigarettes. That's what happens. You get all of that inhaled cigarette smoke, all of those chemicals, particularly the tar, that builds up on your lungs, and obviously you're going to have a lot of trouble breathing using that lung on the right side of the screen. All right, on to the next slide. So there are a lot of ways in which cigarettes can kill you. As I said earlier on, this slide says 440,000 deaths. The CDC says 480,000 deaths a year can be attributed to smoking. Now, certainly respiratory diseases, lung problems account for a lot of those. On the yellow section of the ashtray slide, you can see that respiratory diseases account for 98,000 deaths a year related to smoking. But there are a lot of other medical issues that can be caused by smoking as well. Heart disease. There are actually more people who die each year of heart disease caused by cigarettes than there are of lung disease. That tar and those chemicals that you inhale, they don't just stay in the lungs. They get into the bloodstream and they build up on the inside of the blood vessels and cause clogging of the blood vessel, and that can lead to heart attacks and strokes. You can see cancers. The biggest piece of the pie here is the blue section. There are several cancers that have been definitively linked to cigarettes. People who smoke are more likely to get cancer. There are the direct causal ones, such as mouth cancer and tongue cancer, which are caused by direct exposure of these chemicals in your mouth. There's lung cancers, which are clearly caused by inhaling a lot of these chemicals into your lungs. But there are other cancers. The rate of breast cancer and colon cancer goes up among smokers, and close to 160,000 deaths of cancer a year are felt to be caused or increased by smoking. And then there are the ones that you wouldn't even think about. Almost 1,000 people a year are killed by house fires started by cigarettes, and up to 1,000 fetus and infant deaths before birth are felt to be caused by smoking as well. Women who smoke are much more likely to have miscarriages or problems with their pregnancy, resulting in the death of a fetus. Let's go on to the next slide. So you don't want to smoke cigarettes. That's too dangerous. I've just told you of all of these harmful chemicals in cigarettes. So let's go with the more healthy alternative. You can use vapes. Vapes, or electronic cigarettes, contain a liquid inside that is aerosolized and put into your lungs, and they don't have a lot of the chemicals that cigarettes do. So leads to the question, are these vapes safer? And the answer is yes, but mostly no. Now, they do have less carcinogens. I can't argue with that. They do have less carcinogens, but they still have several chemicals in them that you don't really want to inhale into your body. For instance, they've been found to have formaldehyde, which we use to embalm dead bodies. They've been found to have diethylene glycol, which is a major ingredient in antifreeze. And they even have some cancer-causing chemicals built in them as well, such as there's a chemical called nitrosamines, which have been found to be carcinogenic or cause cancer. These are not chemicals that you want to bring into your body if you don't have to. In addition, the biggest reason why I am opposed to vapes is that they still have nicotine. That's why they're electronic cigarettes or vapes. They still deliver nicotine into your body. And as we'll go through in a couple of slides, that's not a good thing. Now let's go on to the next slide. One of the biggest problems I have with vapes, and most doctors have with vapes, is the flavors. You may have seen that wide variety of flavors. There's blueberry, there's grape, there's strawberry. I even saw in researching this webinar a cotton candy flavored vape. Now, who do you think that they're targeting with that? Do you think the 50-year-old adult who's been a smoker their whole life wants the cotton candy vape? Or are you trying to get teens to use these, teens who would otherwise have not been smokers because, ooh, that smells delicious? And then what you've done is you've given nicotine to the kids and made them nicotine addicts. Nicotine is an addictive drug, and so far, vapes are unregulated because of the way that they're delivering their nicotine product. The laws have been slow to keep up, and while there are laws pending in many states, there is very little regulation of vapes. So you're causing younger and younger children attracted to the flavors to become nicotine addicts, and as a result, you are endangering getting them either addicted to vapes for life, getting them stuck on cigarettes maybe because they go on to smoke cigarettes instead of vapes when there may not be a vape available, and they still risk putting many chemicals into their body. Let's go on to the next slide. So I've talked a bunch about how nicotine is not good for you. What are the actual problems associated with nicotine, and why do we want to avoid nicotine? Here are some of them here. Number one, they increase the risk of blood clots in your body. Number two, they can raise your blood pressure and your heart rate. They even have effects on your brain. The upper right side of the slide, you can see that they can cause lightheadedness, headaches, sleep disturbances, irritability, and dizziness. And, as I said previously, vapes can lead back to smoking. Because you are getting nicotine, your body gets used to the nicotine. Nicotine withdrawal is a very difficult habit to break, as we'll get into shortly. Because nicotine is a hard habit to break, you start to get hot flashes, you get increased anxiety when you try to stop smoking. So by using vapes or cigarettes, you are putting yourself at risk of many of these side effects, as well as many more side effects when you actually try to stop smoking or using vapes. So you're now a chronic vape user or a chronic cigarette user, and you realize that it's not a good idea after listening to the webinar or considering the acne and ugliness issues. You say, maybe it would be a good idea to try and stop. How are we going to stop? So on the next slide, I have the first option. Here we have a picture of some Nicorette gum. Nicorette gum has nicotine in it so that when you stop smoking or stop using vapes and you start to get those anxiety symptoms, nausea, headaches, you have something to help get you through that withdrawal process. The biggest problem with Nicorette gums is that it still contains nicotine. So you really aren't solving the problem. You're switching one addiction kind of for another. And while a small percentage of people who use Nicorette gum are able to taper down their gum use and eventually stop, most people end up going back to cigarettes because you've never really broken the cigarette smoking nicotine habit. So because of that, I'm usually loath to recommend Nicorette gum as a great way to get off either cigarettes or vapes. So what are our other options? We'll see on the next slide. So this is the most popular current stop smoking medication out there. It's called Chantix. There's another one which is called Zyban or Wellbutrin. They are medicines that go straight to your brain and can help you beat the nicotine habit. The way they work is you take them for about 2 weeks before you try to stop smoking, and they build up in your brain. They actually go to the part of your brain that desires nicotine when you're addicted to nicotine and blocks that so that when you stop smoking, you don't go into nicotine withdrawal at all. When you take these medications and then you stop smoking, you should theoretically be able to stop smoking without any of the side effects associated with stopping the nicotine. And about 70% of people who use Chantix or Zyban are able to stop smoking by the time they're done with their course of medication, which usually lasts for about 3 months. The problems associated with these medicines is that they do have some of their own side effects. Both of these medicines can be stimulatory, which means they can make you a little shaky, a little tremulous, make it a little bit hard to sleep. And the medicines have to be taken twice a day, so we usually recommend that you take the evening dose between 2 and 4 in the afternoon so it doesn't make it hard for you to go to sleep, but you still get the control of the nicotine addiction. The other problem is that even though about 70% of people are able to quit smoking after 3 months of these medications, about half of those end up going back to smoking within a year. Why would that be? Why would you be able to break the nicotine habit, stay off of cigarettes for about 3 months, and then go back? And the answer is on the next slide. There's more to breaking the habit than nicotine. I have a 2-year-old right now, so I can tell you that one of the hardest things you have to do as a parent is get rid of the pacifier or binky. And that has nothing to do with nicotine. It's because once a baby gets used to having that thing in their mouth, it's very hard to get rid of it. And the same thing goes for cigarettes and vapes. The nicotine is only half the battle. There are habits that form, even in teens and adults, that are very, very difficult to break. A lot of people, every time they have their morning cup of coffee, they have a cigarette. Or every time every day after work, they go to the bar and they have a beer and they have a cigarette. Or they carpool with some buddies to work, and every time they get into the car, they have a cigarette. Most people who smoke have certain times of the day and certain things that they just associate with smoking. And in order to be a successful ex-smoker, you have to break these. So, for instance, if you're someone who smokes every day when you get in the car to drive to work, for the next couple of months, you're taking the bus. If every day you have a cup of coffee before you go to work and you have a cigarette with it, I want you to go to Starbucks and have your cup of coffee in the Starbucks instead, where you can't smoke. Because unless you break the habits that go along with smoking, you will never successfully break the smoking habit. All right, let's go on to the next slide. So you've completed a course of Zyban or Chantix, and you've become an ex-smoker. Lots of good things can happen as an ex-smoker. You'll smell better, you'll be more attractive, food will taste better, and both real and metaphorically, you will be able to breathe easier knowing that you are an ex-smoker. So on the next slide, I'm going to tell you what Active Doctors can do for you to help you if you are a smoker or someone in your life is a smoker.
Attention, long-time smokers. The following is a message for every long-time smoker who needs to quit smoking without expensive long-term treatments. Hi, my name is Rick, and here's the truth you need to know about quitting smoking. In fact, here's the biggest problem you face right now. It's that you've tried to quit smoking and have experienced no real success. But that's not the end of the problem. It actually gets worse. Here's the real problem you're facing when it comes to quitting smoking. Bottom line, people lose all hope of ever quitting smoking for good. If so, you are finally ready to quit, but can't find a way that works for you. And worst of all, many longtime smokers can't get past the idea of quitting smoking is really, really hard. But nothing could be further from the truth. And if you're a smoker who wants to finally quit, and quit for good, and really needs to quit, here's the solution you've been looking for. Introducing Quit Smoking Magic. Quit Smoking Magic helps you because there's no willpower necessary. There's no chance of any side effects. You'll never relapse when using this program. It helps you to successfully quit smoking in as little as just days. I mean, quit smoking cigarettes super fast. And best of all, you'll start seeing results in as little as just 7 days. And you can check it out for less than $5. So again, if you're a smoker who wants to finally quit for good, understand this. You need a way to quit smoking now rather than later. You'd like to live a smoke-free life and quit smoking without any side effects? Act now before it's too late. Get on board Quit Smoking Magic now.